That wasn't an easy list to whittle down.
Oh yeah, for you?
No, I mean, there's a lot of...
For me?
No, for me.
Oh. What was
Probably
Oh well, I
10 of
guess we'll
them on my
find out.
short list.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, okay. I'm surprised a little bit here. 1, 3, 4. Oh, I never picked a 5. I suppose it's got to be that.
Civil War.
You just stop your attempts at insults and you just wait.
Ghost Rider.
Oh, I thought you meant Ghost Rider. Do you remember that cartoon, that show?
No. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Ghost Rider. They write messages to it, and
We got to do Ghost Rider so we have another Nicolas Cage reference in the show.
No, you can do that. You can do that. I'll put it as an honorable mention. It's fine. All right. How's am I fuzzy or anything? I had to move all this stuff.
Sounds fine. And
my door.
Aircraft's going over the house.
Yeah, you hear that's a sensitive mic. They know. The government knows. Okay. All right. I have my 15 picks. I have like several honorable mentions.
10 honorable mentions for our top 5 list.
I might. I don't know. Like, there's some like even in the honorable mentions, I'm like, maybe my 5. It's hard to pick a 5. Okay.
You could have just done like phase 1, phase 2.
There isn't a phase 5 yet, so I couldn't go all the way up to 5. So I just didn't do it.
And then Howard the Duck.
All right, sure. Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider. Oh, that was also Sam Elliott.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ghost Rider had Sam Elliott in it. Yeah.
I don't remember it. I remember the show kind of like.
Show. Oh no! I meant your Ghost Rider.
Rider.
Yeah, that had Sam Elliott. Remember, he was the.
I don't remember that film. I really like Ghost Rider. That's one of my favorite comic books. Oh. And yeah, they just messed that movie up. It's also got to be really hard to film something like that, so I didn't have high hopes for it either.
I mean, it was, how could you go wrong with Eva Mendes, though? Okay. All right. I think I might need some coffee later. Okay.
You are listening to Coast to Coast Film Reviews with Raj and David. Let's talk movies.
Hey everybody, welcome to Coast Film Reviews. The following program is completely unrehearsed and anything interesting is entirely accidental. I'm your host, Raj, and let me introduce my co-host. Here he is, a man whose incredible generosity, huge talent, and great wit are exceeded only by his ability to write ridiculously overdone introductions for himself, which I in turn have to read. It's David!
Thank you, and I will cash app you that money.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. No, these ridiculous introductions about David are usually written by me. So anytime he's insulting himself, it's because I'm insulting him. It's
yes.
So it's not some sick self-deprecating humor that David's interested in. I just force it upon him. And I don't tell him what I'm about to say.
Yeah, I'm not. I can make fun of myself. Not as much as Kevin Smith, but I can make fun of myself.
Wait, is that alluding to some Kevin Smith thing you have to say later?
Oh, yeah. I don't even know if I can talk about it, but yeah.
Do it, man.
Kevin Smith pissed me off.
I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan. I mean, I think I've seen one or two of his, like, didn't he have a review show or something, like where he had like
that comic book show?
Uh-huh.
We talked about comic books, but he did like a podcast, and
Was that the one where he'd have like 30 people in the crowd or something, and then they would all just kind of ask questions and they just discuss the movie or something?
Well, he did that a lot too.
Oh.
But I think that heart attack really fucked him up in his brain.
Oh shit, he had a heart attack?
Yeah, he almost died. And now he's making shitty movies. Like, you have more time on this earth. Make some good fucking movies. Like,
he's like, I have a gift for the world.
He was a fat comic book guy, and now he's a skinny vegan. So, yeah.
What was his best movie before the heart attack? What was
his best movie? It would have to be in between Clerks and Dogma. Those are my two favorite.
Oh, that's right. Dogma was him. So he wrote it or directed it?
He writes and directs, I think, pretty much everything he does.
I like Dogma. Dogma was weird. I saw it when I was younger, and I was like, I don't get it. And I had to see it again, and I was like, okay, it was pretty good. Like, I liked it. And Ben Affleck was in it. I was like, whoa, it's weird.
You know, as your friendly local atheist, that film's always been high on my anti-Catholicism list of comedies.
It's high on my Salma Hayek list too.
Any movie where you have George Carlin as a priest, I'm down for.
I want to hear the pitch for that role for George Carlin. If he was like super eager, it's like, hell yeah.
And Alanis Morissette is God. I mean, how do you do better than that?
I think that really dates the movie though. When you have someone who really like peaked within like, what was that, 1 or 2 years of that movie, play such a big role.
Yeah,
not a big role, but like, you know, an important role, I guess you could say.
Well, you know, Chris Rock plays a disciple too.
But he's black. That? Jesus had black friends?
You don't remember that joke?
No, I don't remember a lot of the small stuff.
What he says, they're like, he says he's a disciple, but it's Jay and Silent Bob. They're like, but you're black.
They actually said that.
Yeah, like, you know Jesus? No, a motherfucker owes me $10.
So now you're making me want to see that again.
He doesn't say motherfucker though. He uses another term that I can't say on air.
And
well, I don't normally say it, so don't get that through your mind. But
that thing you say all the time about those people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it didn't come out right now. People think I go off air and I'm hanging out with the alt-right.
Because we're recording. This is a persona.
Yeah, I'm PC when we record. When we're done, you know, I drop all the words that they just use the initial for nowadays.
The N-word. All right. So what we have for today was actually suggested by David, surprisingly. He said, Raj, how about we do a top 10 comic book... Wait, how are we going to say this? Comic book adaptations, right?
Yes, sir.
That's a good one. Comic book adaptations. So comic book graphic novel is fine.
Well, you've indulged me on like my A24 stuff, and
boy, have I! Boy, I have sat through so many surprise Midsummer reviews and talks between you and our guests. I'm just like, oh god, here it is, Midsummer.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I thought we'd go deep into your wheelhouse, you know, your love, and see what you come up with. That's I wonder if we'll get anything outside of Disney, but we'll see.
Oh, you know what? It's not fair because some of these, 1, 2 of these, may have been before Disney bought them. So technically, they aren't Disney, all of them. Anyway. All right. So go ahead and I'm interested in your list because you said you had like an overflowing list of adaptation picks. So give us your number 5 if you have them so ranked.
Well, I just want to preface my list. I set a couple restrictions on myself.
Okay.
I didn't do any mangas.
Okay.
And I didn't do anything from Batman universe, because I feel both of those would just dominate the list. So I kept Joker would probably be number one, or Joker and Old Boy would, if we go that route, because they're two great films. But I decided to make it a little more interesting and not have it bogged down by Christopher Nolan and Joaquin Phoenix. And so I'm on my first pick, my number 5. I'm going with pure nostalgia. It is 1980 Superman 2.
Okay.
Not Superman 1.
Yeah.
Superman 2. Written, and I didn't know this until recently. It was co-written by Mario Puzo, who was best known for writing the novel The Godfather, and also writing the script for The Godfather. It's not a name that you would generally put into superhero territory, but yeah, co-written by Mario Puzo, directed by Richard Lester, and starring the great Christopher Reeve. May he rest in peace. And also Gene Hackman played Lex Luthor. But this is the one that we get introduced to General Zod and his 2 henchmen, Ursa and Nan. I think I've quoted Kneel Before Zod probably almost as much as any movie quote ever. But this is just such a fun movie, because this is the one, if you remember, this is after the events of part 1, obviously. And Lois Lane finds out that Clark Kent is really Superman. And so he can be with Lois Lane, he gives back his powers. He goes to the Fortress of Solitude and exposes himself to what is like the red kryptonite that takes his powers away. So he can be with Lois Lane, because I guess if you had sex with Superman as a normal mortal, he'd probably, like, his semen would probably rip through your body. So so he has to give back his powers. And that's when General Zod and his henchmen show up. And Superman is he's no longer Superman, so he has to figure out how to become Superman again. Do you remember this film?
Oh my gosh, I think I've seen this like once when I was a kid, and I've heard like that line where he's like kneel before Zod. I've heard that so many times, but I was a big fan of the Smallville series when I was a teenager. I think that was when I was a teenager, starring Tom Welling on the WB. That was my last like big Superman experience. But before that, no, the old Superman movies really weren't. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I just like they were just very much older characters, and I don't think they were really for my time. It really wasn't the Superman for my generation. Unless if I had been like more of a comic book nerd at the time, then I would have like went to those as like, oh yeah, it's Superman, like that would have been like my go-to for Superman movies. But they just felt like old people, and like all the special effects and stuff were much different. And Gene Hackman, I remember seeing one. I think it was on TV. Maybe it was Superman 4 or something. I think that's the one everyone makes fun of more so than the other ones.
Part 3 is the one with Richard Pryor.
Maybe it's 3. I remember at the end of 3 is the one where he makes the diamond. He just grabs a coal and then he crushes in his hand and makes a diamond for Lois or something. Like, oh, okay. So you can solve a lot of problems making diamonds for people. But let's just get that for Lois. But the Gene Hackman is such a lame Lex. Like, he's just this balding old guy, and Superman is just
Gene Hackman now.
He's just such a like. He's like, oh, Lex, what are you up to now? It's like, come on, just put him in a jail cell and then figure it out. Like,
it's. I think it was made to be kind of campy, though.
Yeah.
And
campy?
it was
Is campy the right description?
Yeah, and I think I'm guessing it was probably PG as well to get the kid audience. It was definitely going more for the kid audience, I think. Yeah. The great part about this is the final fight is not a fight at all. So how Superman loses his power, he's in the Fortress of Solitude. He gets into like this little booth that closes up, and exposes him to these crystals, and that's how he loses his power. So he goes back, and there's other crystals that give him his power back. So what happens? Zod and his goons, they see once Superman comes back, they see that they can't really beat him in a fight because he's fucking Superman.
Yeah. But
they see his weakness is that he doesn't want people to get hurt. So they go around and start, threatening the people, and so Superman flies back to the Fortress of Solitude to have them follow him. So Gene Hackman's there as well, and he tells Gene Hackman, who's playing Lex Luthor, about this booth because Zod is about to turn on Gene Hackman. And to save himself, Lex tells Zod, oh, this is what Superman's going to do. So they put Superman in the booth, but lo and behold, Superman had reversed it. So everybody outside the booth is now losing all their superpowers.
Genius.
So it's pretty much he goes to shake Zod's hand and he crushes it, and Zod realizes that he can be hurt now, and they just push everybody down these crevices. I mean, Lois even kills the female antagonist.
You can't have Superman punching women.
No, this is or woman punching men, I guess. But she just kind of elbows her. So the final fight is just not a fight at all. It's Superman using his great Superman mind.
Isn't this the one with the great V suits? They come out with their V uniforms, the visitors.
Oh yeah.
With the deep V costumes. Those are great. That's how you know they're aliens.
It's so 80s, even though it's 1980. It's such an 80s film, but it's one that's always stuck with me ever since I was a little kid.
Oh, Christopher Reeve felt that this was the best film in the franchise.
I would have to agree with him.
Oh my gosh, during one take of the shot in which you mentioned Lois punches Ursa, Margaret Kidder accidentally punched Sarah Douglas and knocked her unconscious. Oh my god!
Is that giving credit to Margot's punch, or the other one is it detracting from her chin?
Well, yeah, Sarah Douglas
got a glass jaw.
Yeah, shouldn't be a boxer for sure.
Yeah. Margot Kidder weighed like 110 pounds.
A television spot for the film was the first commercial ever aired on MTV on August 1st, 1981.
That's historic, my friend.
Ooh, so historic, I think we should move on. Let's see here. Oh, man, I don't know what to pick. Okay, I'm going to go with the one that I didn't watch as recent. I'm going to go with... you stayed away from Mr. Nolan, but my favorite was... my number 5 is going to be Dark Knight. Wait, was it just called The Dark Knight? No, I got to look. Dang it. Why does IMDb hate me? Dark Knight. Oh, here we go. The Dark Knight. Okay.
Did you spell Knight with a K?
Yeah, I did. I just when you type in Dark Knight, tons of shit comes up. So anyway, my number 5 pick is going to be The Dark Knight from 2008. I saw this in theater, in the IMAX theater. I think this might be only the second. I saw a Spider-Man movie in IMAX one time, but yeah, this was so good, man. I was really blown away by Heath Ledger's performance of Joker. And I mean, lately, Joaquin did a great job too, but that movie is not on my list because I didn't want to keep overlapping with stuff we keep talking about. So that's an honorable mention for sure. But The Dark Knight, I felt like this was finally like the darker side of that Batman trilogy was getting into it. 3 was weird. Dark Knight Rises, that was not that great. The first one was okay, Batman Begins, but then this one with Heath Ledger's Joker, like, is finally getting a little more chaotic, and his role was so weird. It was a Heath Ledger movie. I mean, it was all him, all eyes on him. It was really great. I mean, I made sure to buy this Blu-ray when it came out, and I was really just I watched it like 2 or 3 times, like once it came out, once I bought it. Do you remember this one?
Oh yeah, it's a great film. It's not just a great superhero film. It's a great overall film. Just the style, the direction, the acting. The only issue I ever had with that trilogy, and I like part 3. I love Tom Hardy as Bane, but Christian Bale's I hate his Batman voice. It's comical almost. Everybody makes fun of it now, but I just don't know why he went with that direction.
I feel like I saw something. Was it him who chose that voice, or did Nolan insist on doing a voice?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question.
Maybe it was a comedy thing. I think I saw it on College Humor. They do this thing on how Batman chose his voice or something, like which one would be most scary. But yeah, it's kind of strange because when I saw other movies, like they don't do a voice; they just talk.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wait, why don't you recognize this person? He's just talking, and he talks like people who know his voice. It's not like, oh, a random person. Why would they know who he is? But like he's like in close proximity with someone who should damn well recognize that voice. And I mean, at least I feel like maybe that's more realistic. Like you got to have this scratchy voice to really hide. Yeah. And his teeth, that always like it weirds me out. If I feel like he's wearing some kind of vampire set of teeth, when he talks, those canines just keep like he's got to move his lips around him. He's weird when he talks. The climax of this movie was pretty epic. Like I remember watching the ending so many times. With and it surprised me. Although as big as a Batman fan as I am, I completely didn't realize that Two-Face was going to be in it. And like he's really like all his iconic coin and stuff is in the beginning with Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
And then that whole shit happens and I'm like, whoa, I forgot all about it. And then at the end, I was like, the Gary Oldman voiceover with that. I was like, oh man, it blew me away the first time. I was like, oh shit, I gotta buy this.
Yeah, because you have this Joker film with almost a Two-Face. It has like the Two-Face origin storyline all within the same film, and I think the pacing is damn near perfect. And Heath Ledger. There's not much else you can say about the guy. He was brilliant in the role. Joaquin Phoenix was brilliant as well. It's just two totally different performances.
Yeah,
and it's hard to say. I like one. I've said I like Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal better, but he also gets a whole film to flesh out that character. But it's hard to say who did it better. They both did a great job.
It's so like even if you think Heath Ledger's filmography and you're like, oh, he's such a great, like you do not recognize him in this movie. He's such a different creature.
Remember how mad people were when they heard he was going to be the Joker?
Yeah, I did. Even I was like, what?
You're like the guy from fucking Brokeback Mountain's going to be the Joker?
Well, I didn't say that. I was
that's what like the internet was blowing up.
I was like, he's such a heartthrob kind of character. It's like, how can he do this dark, like chaotic mind and like display that? And then I was like, whoa, I was so wrong. And then I was so upset when that happened. He's dead. And
what I love, and this was something that his portrayal. This was because of the prosthetic with his lips, but it made him lick his lips a lot.
Yeah,
and it made him talk a little strange, but it made the character that much more menacing.
Yeah, all his different stories. So how I got this and all this.
Yeah,
man,
it's a great film. But you're not ranking them, so we'll just say that should be number one, but you're not ranking them.
I have a different number. This is my list, David. It's my list. This is my 5.
Well, I'm gonna go with my number 4.
Go for it.
Now, and even be honest with you, I pick obscure stuff sometimes. There's only one film on this list that wasn't pretty successful at the box office. This one isn't it. This one was successful. This is 1994's The Crow.
Oh.
This was Brandon Lee's breakthrough role, which was also the role he died in. Which is very sad. But Brandon Lee plays Eric Draven, who is a rock musician who his girlfriend or his fiance is raped and murdered, and he is killed by a gang of thugs. So somehow he's basically a zombie, if you think about it, a zombie with superpowers. He digs himself up out of a grave like a year later, and he has the power to kick everybody's ass. And whenever he gets a wound, it heals super quick. So it's a revenge film, but it's so stylistically like beautiful. It's dark and it's gritty. If you compare this to Gotham City, if you compare where he's at, it's like going from New York to hell. The city is just so dark and disturbing. The action sequences are done beautifully. But even the soundtrack, this is 1994, and I remember I bought the soundtrack when it came out because it had Nine Inch Nails, Stone Temple Pilots, Pantera, the Rollins Band. Just the soundtrack was even amazing. And I think the soundtrack back in the 90s, that was a big thing. Like you paid a lot of bands to be on the soundtrack, and that almost drove people into the movies. And this was one of those films that did that. But I own the movie and I own the soundtrack. I just think it was brilliant.
Yeah, this is one movie that I have had on my list for a long time. I saw there was like a TV series with Mark, I'm going to butcher his last name, Dacascos. You know what I'm talking about?
I never watched it. I knew they were doing it.
He's kind of like he's not related at all to Brandon Lee, but he's an amazing lookalike for the character. And that always made me want to watch the original movie. And then they did some weird sequel at some point.
Yeah, they did. It was a while later.
I was like, whoa, gross, because it's with this other kid.
I might have seen it. I don't remember it at all.
But
it's almost like it's the goth superhero.
Yeah.
It's very, very goth looking, all black, white face. And Brandon Lee, unfortunately, died. He was shot on set by a malfunctioning blank.
Was it a blank? Because the rumor that I heard was a bullet, that it was a real bullet.
How it is, and I remember, I think I saw this in the documentary or something. They had two different bullets that they use. The gun that killed him was a revolver. So when they do close-up shots, it looks more like a real bullet, and it has a projectile in it, but the blasting cap is not supposed to have gunpowder in it. When you use blanks are the ones that make the actual noise, but there's no projectile.
Right.
So what happened is that when they were shooting off the first type, it got lodged into the barrel of the gun. They didn't check that. Ugh. So when they put the blanks in there that now have gunpowder, since that projectile was lodged inside the barrel, the gunpowder from the projectile from the blank shot that projectile out, which would come out almost like the force of a regular bullet.
Jeez. March 31st, 1994, huh? 93. That's sad. And I remember hearing the conspiracies, like it was like, it felt like it was kind of like the Kennedys, like, oh, they were coming after the Lee, like the last of the descendants of Bruce Lee and stuff. Like there was some underground people after him. And I was like,
this thing was a tragic accident.
It's so sad. I remember seeing him I think he did at least a few other movies before The Crow, because I remember seeing him in an interview with someone, probably Leno or whoever the hell was on then. But he seemed like such a nice guy. Like he was such just a well-spoken guy, and I was like, oh, he seems really chill.
Yeah, this wasn't his first role, but it was like his first big role.
Yeah, that was a sad death. When I heard about that, I was like, oh, Brandon Lee.
Yeah, he had like 3 or 4 films before that.
Well, you dragged us all real down there, David. Down a deep, dark hole. I'm going to go with the movie that I think maybe you've seen. It is called Watchmen. Did you see it? Yeah?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I remember this one when it took me a couple watches because the first time I saw it, I was like, I didn't finish it because I was like, oh, these guys they just look like some rundown group of guys and like, okay. And then I think I only made it about halfway through. And then I watched it again and it was just it was like this mixed with this like realism, like their actual real lives were so so important like to the story. It was about them coming back out of this dull like droning and their loss of ambition and their just loss of will, like why bother, the world is like this now. And then they just like come back strong. And the whole Dr. Manhattan, that's when I just became really interested in Dr. Manhattan's role, not just because he's naked throughout the entire thing. I mean, that's great, right? Who doesn't love that? Which I was like, first time I saw it, I was like, whoa, this guy and his nudity, this blue guy. Like, and then I realized how much he looks like the real actor, because I was like, oh, where have I seen that guy? I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, I've seen some other movies with that guy in it. I don't think that was his real body. It's like, oh, that's crazy. It's super built. But yeah, and then
there's a lot of politics in that movie too.
Yeah,
making some political statements.
When I really had the chance to pay attention to this movie, because I think the first time I had kids and I was running around and I was like, I'm not getting this. Like, whatever. Why am I trying this movie? And then I ended up finishing it and I was like, oh, all the way to the end. I was like, the ending was so good too. It was like, wow, it was like really deep and like you said, like political and like the ethics of what they were doing, and it was a real gut punch. I was like, oh. Like I like the acting, and that guy who plays Rorschach is also the guy who ends up playing the newest Freddy Krueger, right?
Yeah,
that guy. I don't know his name, but I think from the first time I saw him, I pegged him. I was like, he's gonna play Freddy Krueger. Like he just had that look in his face. Like I was like, oh, sure enough, it happened. But yeah, that was a real good one. I really loved Watchmen.
I have to go back and revisit it because the show came out last year. On
and
HBO.
I haven't given that a chance, actually. I heard good things about it.
Yeah, I've heard good things too, so I think I might go back and revisit that and try to knock out that series, see if it's worth watching.
Yeah, it just started. They only have one season, and it's HBO, so they probably don't have more than like 10 episodes or something anyway.
I don't know, HBO usually... They put out a good product, so I think it'll be worthwhile.
Oh, HBO supporter over there.
Well, I'm going to go at number 3. And speaking of HBO, it's not an HBO movie, but one of the main characters is part of the Game of Thrones cast. But this is 2012's Dredd. We spoke about this film before, starring Keith Urban, who is in another.
Wait, not Keith Urban.
What the hell is it? Carl Urban, right?
Keith Urban's the country music star.
Yeah. Carl Urban.
This was the joke I made last time.
Yeah, which is much cooler than Keith. He also stars in that show, was it The Boys? That was another good superhero show.
Yes, I still have not started that. I want to see that one. But yeah, I love Carl Urban.
Yeah, you'll like if you're a fan of horror and superheroes, I think it's a good mixture of like almost like gory. It's a gory superhero.
Is it depressing though too? Because Jess said like it's a show where like after you see a couple episodes, you got to see something light before you go back to it.
I think she's just kind of sensitive to that type of stuff anyway. I'm immune to all that.
Oh,
I didn't see it as depressing.
Okay,
But Dredd is, don't get it confused with Judge Dredd, the Sylvester Stallone movie, because that's absolute shit.
We're going to have to do a Stallone marathon one of these days.
This movie, the first time I watched it, I wasn't sure if I liked it because it reminded me so much of The Raid. And I was like, did they rip off The Raid? But from further reading, they were filming The Raid at the same time this movie is being filmed. So the fact that there's a lot of similarities is just total coincidence. But like the raid, Judge Dredd and a rookie, they go to this apartment building. This is in a dystopic future, and the drug lords run this apartment building. They're huge high rises. So Dredd and the rookie, they have to go floor by floor to try to get rid of these criminals. The main criminal is named Mama, who is played by Lena Headey, who is Cersei Lannister.
Yeah.
But this is such a fun, just gory shoot 'em up movie. The action is amazing. But it's fun to watch. Carl Urban, you never see his face, but he just walks around with so much confidence. Almost like a RoboCop type character. He's just badass, just wiping everybody out. But if you like those shoot 'em up type movies, you will really like Dredd. It's a fun movie.
What I loved about it was just like that, just that bear, just killing people, just like left and right, just like brains not brains, but like it was just bloody. And it caught me off guard because I didn't know that what was going into it. I was expecting like Stallone. I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be like, playing by the rules sort of thing. Got to keep it clean. But man, they were just all over the place. And then what I didn't like, I wanted to see Carl Urban's face because I was like, oh man, like who is this? And then it took me a while to realize like, oh, it's him. I was like, why didn't you want to show your face? Like, why'd you accept this role? Like, you couldn't even get to show your face. Not even in the end. I thought maybe,
no.
At the end, someone's going to kick off his helmet or it's going to accidentally come off. Nothing. Not once did it come off, right? I don't remember seeing his face.
It doesn't come off. I didn't even know who played him. And really, I didn't pay that much attention.
His voice is so, like, I recognize his voice. And I was like, oh, I know. What movies have he been in? And to look it up.
And it's visually fun because the drugs that they're selling isn't a real drug. It's made up for the movie. But when you take this drug, it's almost like an inhaler, and they inhale it. It's a liquid that vaporizes for them, but it makes them, the people who are high off it, makes it seem like time is slowed down to a crawl. So there's this one scene where the drug lord, she has two guys that ratted her out or whatever, and she makes them take this drug and throws them off the high rise. But to them, they're falling in slow motion to their death. And visually, it's just really cool how they do that.
I mean, in reality, the slow-mo for them would just end, right? Because by the time they actually reach the bottom, that would happen faster than their pseudo slow-mo experience, right?
It doesn't make much logical sense, but it's cool visually.
No, yeah, I got to see it again. I like those slow-mo scenes. Yeah, I didn't love the movie. I remember you brought it up. Why did we bring it up? Was it one of your action movies? Or maybe we were talking about Carl Urban.
It was probably one of our tangents we went off on.
One of many.
But it could have been an action movie. It's a fun action movie.
Yeah, so
it kind of brings you back to, those kind of 80s, just guns blazing type action.
And you prefer Carl Urban and this Olivia girl to Stallone and Sandra Bullock, right? Isn't she the...
I would prefer you to Stallone.
Well, I know.
If they did a Dredd remake with Raj as Dredd, I would go see that before Stallone.
Then they asked me to do the accent. Oh, I'm just Dredd. Oh wait, that was weird. I don't know.
That was Arnold.
That was like Arnold and Stallone. I'm just I can't do it. I can't do it right now. I wasn't prepared for this. All right, let's go on to my number. What am I at? 3.
Yep.
My number 3. Man. Okay, I'm going to say, and someone actually reminded me in the group, I'd love to give credit to who reminded me of this movie. Not that it was really off my mind when I came to this list, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, there's someone else who loves this movie too. And there are more comic book fans, David, than you would like. in the group, so don't be hating too much in public. I might have some support. I might. Superman. Here we go. Mr. Chris Powell supports me in this pick of mine with Captain America: Winter Soldier. Have you seen this one?
I think I've seen a majority of them.
What, just the Captain America movies, or you mean the Marvel movies?
I've seen most of the Marvel ones, at least partially. But the Winter Soldier, that's the one with Bucky, right?
That's the one where we find out what happens to Bucky.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say it's Captain America's kryptonite, really, because the second, like, he hears, like, Bucky on the drop of a dime, he just like, huh? And he just goes, like, brain dead and open for punches and kicks and stabbings and whatever. Like, anybody says Bucky, I know where Bucky is. I know who Bucky is. I know Bucky's alive. Like, oh, God, like, Captain America just, like, drops you. He'll give you anything you want, and he's just, like, he drops. This movie was like one of the first ones in the series that I felt like really like tugged at my heartstrings when they really they delved into like their friendship, and it started to, wasn't this the one, gosh, unless I'm getting my storylines mixed up, this was the one with Iron Man tied in, right? Or am I thinking of End of Civil War? Oh, you know what?
Civil War.
I'm thinking Civil War. But this one was with the Bucky, where he had to save the world. The elevator scene. This is why I love this one. There's the elevator scene with him and Frank Grillo, who I spotted nearby. I don't give my location, so I can't say where. But I spotted Frank Grillo, and nobody believed me in the group. They said, "Oh, no picture, no proof." I was like, okay, I'm not going out chasing these people like paparazzi. But he's in there, and he's in that fight scene where he's in the elevator, and he starts going down the elevator, and all of a sudden, all these agents start piling in the elevator around him, and oh God, he just says this line, like he's like, are you guys ready to do this or something? Like, he knows, like, he can feel the tension in the, you got to see it, like, if you've never seen this movie, or you said you did, but you got to rewatch this scene. It's so badass, just watching him take on these, like, 10 dudes in an elevator. And that sounds super gay, the way I said that. Taking on 10 dudes.
Taking on 10 dudes at the same time.
At the same time. But it's a really cool scene. And I also saw this, one of the stuntmen in that scene was interviewed in this other YouTube video I saw, where he was talking about like how they do some of the scenes, and he was one of the guys in the elevator, and he was talking about how awesomely choreographed Chris Evans is. Like, he's like he does it like a dance. And he's just like, he knows the moves so well, like on beat, on point, like he never misses a drop. And they showed the scene, and the stuntman who's talking, he's like, after I get hit, he's like, that's me on the floor, I'm just sleeping. And he's like, basically, I got paid to sleep the rest of that scene. It's just because he got knocked down, he just lays on the ground. And that scene is just so, it just blew my mind. I was like, oh, it's so fucking badass. But yeah.
One thing I think would have made the Captain America films a little better, they would have played up more of the fish out of water role, like have like a little more humor, like have Captain America using 1940s lingo and stuff and just being totally lost. I don't think they played that up enough.
They bring it up every so often when he's like the real Boy Scout and he doesn't swear. He's like, watch your language and stuff. And they're like, whoa, like they make fun of him like he's a grandpa and stuff.
That would have been great if he would have been using like slang from the 40s just to really confuse everybody. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Captain America?
I mean, he's okay. I'm wondering like what real opportunities he would have had to be able to use some of that. A lot of it.
You got to think how lost you would be.
Yeah.
And just on a logical sense, how lost you would be if you were transported 60 years in the future.
From the first movie to, I want to say the second movie, because he only gets in oh my God, the first Avenger, the first Captain America movie. At the end, he only comes back at the very end, like he quote unquote dies, but then he's reborn at the end by Nick Fury, and he runs out in the middle of the street, and he's like looking all around, he doesn't know where he is, and then the cutscene shows him being offered the job. But and between that one and the second movie, there's a huge gap, and there's a lot of stuff, like he meets Falcon, who gives him like mixtapes and stuff, and like stuff to listen to, and he adds stuff to his list.
Shouldn't Captain America be very racist too?
He doesn't have to be, David. It's just
every
because
white guy
he's
in the 40s was
blonde
racist.
guy, blue eyes. I mean, he fought Nazis, so he would have been like a great spy, blonde hair, blue eyes. But he wasn't racist. Okay, he loves.
I think all white guys in the 40s were racist.
How many decades you missed that?
Come on. Hey, white guys, look at your grandpa. You know he has some racist tendencies. Yeah, grandpa's like 70, 80 now, and he just says things that you're like, Grandpa, you can't say that anymore. Good old fun.
You, sir, are at your number 3?
My number 2.
2.
But I'm going to do a couple honorable mentions because I on my longer list before I got to a 5, there was a couple Marvel non-Disney movies on there.
Mm-hmm.
Logan, which I really enjoyed, but it didn't make my list because the story is very. I've seen the story so many times in different movies, but just it was great to see Wolverine be able to shed the PG-13 and be Wolverine. So that was fun to watch because I always loved Wolverine growing up, and I really liked the Deadpool movies.
Oh yeah, Deadpool. Yeah, the first one that came out, I think that was a huge surprise to everyone. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
I think they mixed the humor and the action, just as good as I think I've ever seen a comedy action film. Like the way that they balanced out the humor and the action was great. There's so many funny parts, but I just want to mention those. I'm not purely a Marvel hater, just mainly Disney. And I also want to mention Snowpiercer, which I think is a great film as well. Not great enough to make it into my top 5, but I just have to give good old Bong a shout out.
Bong Ho Bong. I already forgot his name.
Jun Bong Ho.
Jun Bong Ho. That's like something else.
But my number 2 is going to be 2005's Sin City.
Oh.
Directed by Robert Rodriguez and co-directed by Frank Miller, who was the guy who did the graphic novels. He was the writer of the graphic novels. And this is such a fun film. It's like 4 separate stories, and the cast is amazing. There's a lot of good people. We have Josh Hartnett, who was pretty big back then. But yeah, Mickey Rourke, Elijah Wood, Rutger Hauer, Clive Owen, Benicio del Toro, Rosario Dawson,
Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, Brittany Miller,
Jessica Alba,
Michael Madsen, Jessica Alba, Nick Offerman. I mean, there's such a great cast. But this is one of the few that I've actually read the source material, and Frank Miller, most of the graphic novels are in black and white, and there's some yellows, but it's almost like the old film noirs, and that's the style that he was going for, and the style transferred really well onto film. I really loved Elijah Wood's character in this.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you say Elijah in that list?
Yeah, a little sick freak serial killer.
Gross.
My favorite story would probably be The Yellow Bastard, and that's one with Bruce Willis. He goes to jail for a while for being kind of a rogue cop, and killing a very powerful man's son who rapes girls. He kidnaps and rapes girls, and he ends up going overboard and killing the guy. Well, he doesn't kill him. He blows off his dick.
Yeah.
So they put him in jail, and he rescues an 11-year-old girl. Fast forward to him getting out of prison. This girl is now a stripper, played by Jessica Alba, and he wants to protect her. So it's just this great dark story. It includes the hooker part of town, and it's just so much fun to watch. And The Hard Goodbye is another really good one. That's Mickey Rourke plays Marv, who's just like big-headed, big-jawed, tough guy, goes around kicking everybody's ass. But if you've never seen this movie, I think most people probably have at this time, but visually it's very beautiful. It's before they did the 300, which is another Miller book. But if you've seen the 300, the visual styling, the way that they shot it, it's very similar.
Yeah, I remember I like the colorizing of it, how they picked and chose what stood out, like when blood and stuff would enter the scene, or women's hair. Who was it? I mean, Mickey Rourke was not entirely recognizable. They had some prosthetics on him, didn't they?
Oh, a lot, yeah.
Yeah, because he was just this big kind of Frankenstein-looking character.
And the sequel was terrible, but the original Sin City is a great movie.
Oh, I didn't see the sequel. Anyone reprise roles?
It is so forgettable that I don't know. I was really amped up to see it, and I just watch it. I don't remember a thing. It was that terrible. I couldn't tell you anything about the film. I watched it once and forgot it probably the next hour.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I did like Sin City. I think I've only seen it once, maybe 1.5 times. It came on TV the other night, and I was planning to watch it. It started halfway, and I was like, oh man, I didn't remember what happened in the beginning, so I stopped. But it was right at the Elijah Wood part, and I was like, oh. Now every time I see Elijah, I'm like, oh, David loves this movie. Elijah's in it. And I was watching some clips of him and who was he talking to? Jimmy Fallon or something. And they were talking about how people mistake him for Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's just getting out of hand now.
Well, if you look at both of their careers, Elijah Wood's been around. He was a child actor, but most people know him for Frodo.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter. Yeah. And since they got rid of those roles, they did all these dark indie films.
Yeah.
And basically had a second career just doing really oddball, non-mainstream films. So they both went that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's what you have to do to really get out of that typecasted kind of feeling, right? There was
Robert Pattinson did the same thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I told you there was this one interview. It was in like a clip of Twilight interview things where someone said like, how do you feel now that the franchise is over? And he's just like, he was just so like exhausted looking. He just looked awful. He was just like, I'm so happy. Like, he's just like, I'm so happy it's all over.
Oh, and Sin City, just to mention, Quentin Tarantino even directed he didn't do a whole segment. He did a scene or two, and he does a guest star in it as well.
Of course. He's like, I'm going to direct one scene or two in your movie, but I have to be in it.
Well, him and Robert Rodriguez have a really close relationship.
Oh, okay. They're best buddies.
They're buddies.
All right. So for my number 2, as maybe you are not very surprised to hear, is Infinity War. I mean, if you're talking about comic book adaptations, there aren't any other movies really that have that many superheroes in a movie, at least not for a while anyway, until they do the next phase and then a new conglomerate of all these superheroes, smashed together. But Infinity War, especially, because I could have put Endgame on here, but I didn't, even though I just did.
Oh, I thought that was just going to be the next pick.
I mean, it could be the next pick. It's a surprise. It could be. No, but Infinity War is on here because I saw that at like a 10 o'clock showing all by myself in the theater, and that's not to get any ahs from anybody, but I just saw it at 10 because it was the night, like the release night, and it was so good. I really loved it, and I got teary eyed from the end with Peter Parker. I was like, oh god, it really got to me. And at the time, it was that Movie Pass. I don't know if you ever used those guys. The
Yeah.
Movie Pass. It was like, I forget how it even worked now. It's like unlimited movies for like
Except for
$15 a
Marvel
month.
movies, right?
No. It worked for
Didn't
that.
they blacklist? Oh, okay. I know they started blacklisting movies.
This was before that. And once they started doing that, then I canceled that whole thing. It was crap. But so and then the next showing was at midnight. So I went and bought tickets again, and I saw another showing, the immediate showing after that. And oh my gosh, like that was the first movie I ever did that with. But that was so like jam packed. I loved it, and the ending. I mean, if you don't, it must be, everyone must know about this now. Like it's such a meme, the Thanos snap and all that.
Yeah.
But at the end of Infinity War, like you just think like, oh, they're obviously gonna save the day. And I don't read up I don't watch trailers. I don't read up anything, so I didn't know whether this was the first part. There's gonna be a sequel to it. I just thought, oh, this is it. 10 years of Marvel movies, and this is what they've built up to. This is the movie. Well, the end comes around, and Thanos snaps his fat chubby fingers, and all half our characters just turn to dust. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And like, wait,
but be real. Besides Spider-Man, it was all B-list characters anyway.
Oh, I mean, the original Avengers cast was left.
Yeah.
The original Avengers were there. Yeah, it's expensive to keep these guys on the payroll. I gotta wipe them out. So. But
so you like the lead up more than the conclusion?
Oh no, I love the ending. The ending was like so sad and depressing, and there were.
No, I'm talking about you like Endgame more than. I mean, you like the Infinity War more than Endgame.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I feel that way usually about a lot of trilogies. Like that whole introduction movie is, if it's not done well, then I usually end up picking something else. But usually, as long as the intro movie is done well, the first one of the trilogy, that's usually my favorite. So this isn't a trilogy, but what is a two movie? What is that called? A duology?
Duology?
Sure. Let's just say duology. Coast to Coast film review. Yeah, I do. Oh, that's too much. So I do a duology. This one, yeah, I prefer the Infinity War one because it was like this big build up, and we got a plan, or actually we don't have a plan. We don't know what to do, but they're fighting and fighting, and it looks like they're winning. And Thor gets his new weapon, and he comes back and is like, oh, he gets him. And have you seen this?
Yeah, and okay. I agree. I like it much better than Endgame. Endgame, it took me like a month to watch that film.
It was 3+ hours, I'm pretty sure. It was like 3 hours and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah.
I didn't. Anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, Thor gets his weapon and he comes back to the fight, and they got him, and that's it. But there's like, no, like you didn't. And then it's like, everything just falls apart. And that's when I was looking at my watch. I was like, they don't have enough time to fix this. I was like, how are they gonna? And I was like, no way. This isn't how it ends. And I swear everybody in that theater waited and waited and waited. And at the final shot in the credits, because there's nothing, they don't show anything. For like I think it must have been the first time in the Marvel series there was no end credit scene. And after the end, when Captain America, they're just standing there. They were just like, he just says like, "Oh my God," or something like they just realized they just lost, and it just goes to credits, and it's dead quiet, and the whole theater was just so quiet. The people in front of me were like, "What the fuck?" And they show the Avengers, the title screen, and it just starts to wash away like sand, like wind blowing the sand, how they dust it off. And I was like, whoa, that was really like, just, it was heavy, that moment. And then watching Tony lose that fight and stuff, I was like, it was epic. That was, for as sad as it was, and how depressed I was, because like, oh man, I gotta wait a year. It's like, God damn it. But it was pretty good, and I'm surprised I didn't put this. I'd say this is pretty close to my one. But it was really good. I loved it.
Well, I'm going to go my number one. And I guess a lot of people don't even know that this is based off a graphic novel.
Oh, it's an obscure thing. Here
no,
we go.
no, it's not. It was a decent sized film. This is 2005's A History of Violence.
Oh, you mentioned this before.
Yeah, directed by David Cronenberg, who he's a director I really respect. He's top tier. He's made a lot of great movies. This is one of the first movies he went away from horror. I'm not looking at his filmography, but he was more known for horror genre, and this was one of the first ones where he got away from that. But it stars Viggo Mortensen, who the film starts off. He's just a small town guy who owns a diner, and he gets into the spotlight when two robbers try to rob his diner, and he kills them in very stylistic violence. And his wife starts questioning him, like, how are you this badass? Like, so all these questions arise. Then all of a sudden, Ed Harris, his character, shows up and starts pestering the family, kind of stalking them. And if you haven't seen it, that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give too much of the movie away.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I remember there was like, is it Maria Bello, the female love interest?
His wife?
Yeah.
I don't remember her name.
I'm trying to remember the trailer.
Ed Harris. William Hurt plays the head of the Irish crime family. He was actually nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars with only 8 minutes of screen time. So that's got to tell you how powerful his performance was. And it's just great. It was also nominated for Best Screenplay. So it's just a really, really good film. And if you haven't seen it, I really suggest checking it out. I think this is one of David Cronenberg's best films. Of course, he did The Fly and Scanners and Videodrome, but this was just such a brilliant film. He did this. He did Eastern Promises right after this with Viggo Mortensen, which is another great film. But yeah, check out A History of Violence. I love it.
Yeah, that's a movie that slipped by. I know I saw the trailer a long time ago, and I was like, oh, I wanted to see what this was. Yeah, Viggo and his nose, man. That's an amazing nose on Viggo.
And you have him, Ed Harris, who I always like Ed Harris in movies. Yeah. And I always like William Hurt, and he's always such a great character actor.
One more note about Viggo's nose. It doesn't look that big in Lord of the Rings. I don't know what it is, but every movie after...
Maybe the ears take away from it.
What ears? He has these long hair. It covers everything else.
I don't remember those films.
I swear to you, I think they digitally reduced it. If you watch Lord of the Rings, his nose looks fairly normal. And then there was this one movie about a race through the desert or something. It was like some kind of fable PG-13 movie where he played this character anyway, like some kind of Western type character. His nose was huge. And I was like, what the heck? What did they put a prosthetic? I was like, no, that's his normal nose. It's like he grew it. He grew it for the movie. Where are we at? Oh, we're at my number one already. Well, now number one, I still have some honorable mentions after this. Just throw in a couple 20 honorable mentions.
Can I throw an honorable mention real quick before you do that?
Okay, go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to a series.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Punisher series?
You mean is on Netflix or something right now?
Yeah. You
recommended it to me. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's one of the best things Marvel ever put out.
I thought you were talking about the Thomas Jane movie, because that's the Punisher that I saw.
The movies suck. The series is true Punisher.
But it has John Travolta in it.
Yeah.
Have you seen it or no? Something. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. Well, they did that one, and they did what's the other one called? Punisher War Machine or something like that.
Yeah, and I didn't see that one. That one was weird.
They're terrible, but the series is great.
I do want to see the series. I heard good things from you and one of my other friends too. But is that it?
Yeah, I just want to bring that one up.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go to my number one, probably my all-time favorite movie.
All-time favorite movie ever?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen it a number of times with my daughter. I have yet to watch it with my son. I'm trying to get him into comic book movies. And your ass actually already mentioned it, so you're going to get the point for our Battleship score, but it is Logan. I have been a Wolverine fan for a long time, and I consider myself lucky that in my lifetime, like one of my favorite comic book characters came to life in such a way for how long? 16 years, 17 years? Hugh Jackman got to play it. I mean, what a great cast for that role. And it was supposed to go to like Russell Crowe or something. And there's a story that Russell Crowe actually recommended. It's like, oh, you should check out Hugh Jackman. He'd be great for the role. And that's how he got it. Now,
I think it was the 10th. It was the 10th X-Men film.
Yeah, X-Men 1, I mean, it's the introduction, whatever. I mean, I have my own theory on the order you should watch them in, but the Logan is just, I mean, it blows the rest out of the water. First of all, it's an R-rated movie. Yeah. And if you love Wolverine, this is a must watch. Like this movie just, oh my gosh, it is him in like the worst, his worst part of his life. And it's just, how is he going to get on? Because so basically this is, if you do the math and you know the comic storyline well enough, he is going on close to 200 years old, his body, because his healing factor is now depleting. And what takes place in previous movies that leads up to this, his consciousness gets sent back to the 70s. And he's already been living for, I forget what, from like the 1900s or the late 1800s is when his actual birth was. And then he goes through like the Civil War, a number of different wars. And he makes it through to modern times. And then he gets sent back in Days Future Past, which then he gets stuck there. And then he lives through all these, it's entirely new timeline, still bearing all these memories of who he was, the people he met, all the relationships he had. And then he goes through meeting these people again. And it is just insane if you think about this character and what they've put him through, like as if he's a real person, but you know, that's the comic nerd in me. But he's put through all this tragedy and all this pain and loss, and finally this movie is like his perfect send-off. And it is just beautiful, and it is sad, and it is depressing to see him like this in this just tired, this worn, old man Logan-esque film. And we're introduced to his legacy, essentially, which we learn in very, very early. And we find out that his healing factor is fading, and it's basically just he's finally getting they find out that it's actually the adamantium is poisoning him. So his whole life, ever since he's got the adamantium plating, his body's been fighting it. And so it's finally taking a toll, and he's essentially being poisoned, and his body just can no longer fight it. And so he's not able to fight like he used to. He's just kind of like, he just looks like this rickety man, and it's hard to see him fight like that when you see the movies before, and he's just like he's the man, and he's got his claws out, and he's out there ripping and tearing people apart, and people are clawing at him, and he's just healing instantly. And here you see this guy, you're like, get the fuck up, like, come on, you're Wolverine, like you're cheering for him, and oh gosh, it's just like it's heartbreaking. And I love this movie, and I saw it with my daughter in theater after I saw it alone, and I just remember like, oh gosh, it was painful, as beautiful as it was.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the movie. And like I said earlier, just the storyline is derivative of a lot of films I've seen. That's the only thing that because when I'm watching, it's like, oh, they're doing this just like this, which kind of takes me out of a film sometimes. But I love the way that it was shot. It was shot like so much more in an artistic way than most definitely other X-Men or Marvel movies. The way that it was shot is beautiful and it took a small story. It didn't have to be this huge story, the world's ending, all this. Right. And it was more of a personal story.
Yes.
Which made you care. I mean, I guess a lot of people care about Iron Man and stuff like that, but this film made you you were emotionally connected to the characters in what I feel is much greater than most mainstream superhero films.
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't about a save the world sort of thing. It was about, they like narrowed down the cast, like who can we give this task? And it was a one task story. It's like, do this, and this is their journey, and this is how we're going to tell it. James Mangold, right? There was another movie by James Mangold that I really liked, and I don't remember it off the top of my head now. I don't know if you know. But yeah, no, it was done very well, and they tried to throw as many of the those like just iconic badass scenes, and it's like, oh gosh, there's so many scenes in this movie that I was just like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, oh yeah, beat the shit out of him. Like, oh, he's just so badass as Wolverine. Like, I don't know who's gonna replace him. I still can't believe he retired this character, and I was crushed when I found that out.
Yeah, and it was very fulfilling to see his claws penetrate people.
Oh, yeah, right?
but James Mangold, he did Copland, which is an amazing film.
With Stallone.
With Stallone.
See? You love Stallone.
Girl Interrupted, which is a good film. Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix, great film. 3:10 to Yuma, which is another really...
The new one, right? Not the old one from 1960 something.
And he just did Ford v Ferrari, which I haven't seen, but I think he's nominated for Best Picture on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
So they took a really well-established, respected director and did a really good superhero film with him.
Yeah. I was really thankful that they did such a nice send off for him. It was very touching. All right. Before you have anything else to shit on, let me just throw my honorable mentions out there. So I'm gonna say that I might have mistakenly said Winter Soldier earlier, and I meant Civil War, because the ending for Civil War is what was really crushing to me. Like that whole. Wait, did you see Civil War?
Yeah, I saw Civil War. I think I saw that in theaters.
So Civil War, the backstory that takes place is Bucky is being pursued, and he's misunderstood to be the terrorist, and Captain America, Chris Evans, oh my God, Steve Rogers, is trying to protect him, and Iron Man, Tony is trying to bring him in, and Steve Rogers gets in the way, and it tears them apart. And it is just like, that was another one. I'm such a nerd to feel for this stuff, I guess. But it's like there's a bromance, man. Like they had such a good bromance together, and then they just like, it's such a crushing moment for that at the end of Civil War, and that was the one I actually think I meant to say instead of Winter Soldier. But Winter Soldier was good too. I'm a sucker for Boy Scout characters like Superman, Captain America, all these guys that it hurts to do wrong. Like they just carry that guilt everywhere with them. And I was going to say, that's kind of like, if there's a good superhero character, and maybe every superhero character, it's always guilt. Like they always carry some kind of guilt with them.
See, I'm always much of a bigger fan of anti-heroes, so that's why I would like somebody like Wolverine a lot more.
He's
Judge Dredd.
He's not an anti-hero.
Wolverine? Oh, he definitely
is. Classified as an anti-hero?
Because he has a lot of darkness to him as well. And he doesn't play by the rules. He doesn't really care about everybody's rules.
Well, we'd have to save that for a segment too.
Like Deadpool would be more of an anti-hero.
Yes. No, Deadpool, I agree. Deadpool is a weird-ass guy who kills random people. Like, he doesn't turn people into the police or anything. Okay, I guess I see. I mean, in terms of Logan, he comes off as more of an anti-hero. But in the framework of what X-Men lives during...
Well, you're not just talking about the movies and the stories, too.
Oh, okay. It's kind
overall.
of like a warscape, though. The way they depict the land that X-Men live in, like they're in a constant war zone. Always like they're on the brink of like death. Everyone's trying to kill them. I don't know. That's hard to say. That's hard for me to agree it's the anti-hero, but I see what you're trying to say.
But he's more the badass, rebel.
Yeah. The lone wolf.
Superman or Captain America.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. He was wait, no, where was I going with this? Oh, the whole guilt thing. I was like, are all these characters Jewish or Indian? Like all these superheroes that are created, like Superman, Spider-Man, they always have this guilt. It's like, oh, I have to make up for what I didn't do, or I should have done that. And they just live their whole lives based on this making up for stuff. I don't know. I was just thinking a lot about our superheroes and the guilt they carry. Like, what are they trying to portray? And anyway, I'm probably going to cut all that out because I was like way too deep in what I want to talk about.
You getting deep on your superhero characters?
Yeah, too nerdy. My honorable mentions, also Spiderverse. I liked Spiderverse is a big favorite of mine too. I wanted to put it in there, but I didn't. That's one.
That might be the best. That's the best Disney.
Disney Marvel.
That's the best Disney Marvel film made.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, there's some stupid Kingpin moments where he's just way too big to fit through doorways, or in or out of his own car. He has no neck. But other than that, like, it was funny as hell, and it was fun. Like the action. The animation annoyed me now and then because it looked like I needed to have 3D glasses.
Well, it looked like a comic book to me.
I like that aspect of it, but
it had like the dot, dots all over the place. I thought that was pretty cool.
There were sometimes though when I was like, okay, this is a bit too much. Like I could see like if I had 3D glasses, like wait, should I be wearing them right now? Like I wasn't sure, like some of the blurriness of it, but. Whatever. It was still really funny. I liked all this. Oh, Nicolas Cage. Oh, see, he did make it into this list.
Which was that?
He was the black and white Spider-Man, the noir one.
Oh, yeah, he was. I forgot that.
Every list. This is a requirement for the show. Every list must have a Nick Cage movie. Also, Spider-Man: Homecoming and Iron Man did make my list. For my last of my honorable mentions. Iron Man that's an old favorite. It started the whole thing. It started the whole end credit scenes that hinted at the Avengers coming up, the Avengers Initiative and stuff. So that was nice. I missed that one.
Yeah, see, when we do your list, it turns into an 1.5-hour segment.
Oh, does it? Oh. I finally get a list, by the way, Mr. A24, and you and Alex just go on for hours and hours.
To my credit, I will usually ask, do you have any ideas about a list?
No, I know you have a lot of A24 fanboys, and Alex was coming on the show, so I wanted to cater to you guys. I knew you guys would have nothing but A24 to talk about. Midsummer. Oh, I love Midsummer. I love pew pew pew. That's for you, Alex.
What?
Pew 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 pew.
Hey, you like the Lighthouse?
I did. I forgot that was A24. No, but me saying I like the Lighthouse always comes off as like an insult to you. Like, oh, you could never appreciate the Lighthouse like I do, Raj.
Yeah, it was done well.
Wait, what list did I have it on? And you were like, "Oh,
no. That's when it was in the theaters, and you went to go see it, and I was going to see it my second time. And you're like, "Yeah, it was done well."
No. I had it in a list. Oh, I think we did the top 10 list of the year. Was that it?
Yeah.
and I said it before you. You were all upset. You didn't even like it that much. That's what I was about to say, but I let you have your moment with Logan. So you dropped that word, and I was like, "Oh, David."
Hey, I was just trying to show that I can have some appreciation for not Disney Marvel.
Fine. You can get that one. All right. Well, David, let me ask you something. What's the worst thing that could happen at a funeral?
Oh man, the body comes back to life.
No, the worst thing would be if Grandma wasn't being buried in some dope-ass threads, yo. This portion of Coast to Coast Film Reviews is being brought to you by Stiff and Stylish, the all-new designer line of clothes for cadavers. Granny is going to be the envy of all her girlfriends from the retirement home when they see what she's going to be wearing at the wake. Come check out our latest outfits that you'd love to be caught dead in. That's Stiff and Stylish for people who plan ahead and don't want to spend all of eternity badly dressed.
I'll get my FUBU jumpsuit.
Wait, isn't that the guy from Shark Tank? Damien? I forget his name. That guy annoys me. He's always such a jerk to people on there. And he's always giving some shitty deal, too.
That's why he's selling his clothes in Walmart now.
Walmart? Oh, I thought you meant Kmart. I was like, Walmart's still open? Kmart's still open? FUBU. Man, FUBU was the shit, man. FUBU used to be awesome. Is it? Wait, they're still awesome. I don't know.
No, it's not anymore.
Oh, okay, I don't know style. I am not a stylish man.